All right, everybody, welcome back to the Move podcast, brought to you each and every time by the OURA Ring. Touch on that in a second. I'm Lance Armstrong, sitting here back in Austin, Texas, for Olivia Armstrong's birthday. Olivia, happy 10th birthday today. First decade is done and dusted, girl. We had a big old night last night. Also here somewhere in Austin, JB Hager over there somewhere, the master of the background, Johan Bernil, the encyclopedia. And big time, George Hincapie had a previous commitment, although it looks like George dropped off. Higgsy might let him back in, but George is in Greenville. He's filming today. You know, as simple people, we just watch bike races and come and talk about it. George is on set. Right? Making that deal.
He's a big deal.
He's making that paper. Like it is each and every time. Today's show brought to you by OURA Ring. Love this. Love the company. Love the tech behind it. Love what it provides for people that are trying to analyze their activity, their readiness, their sleep, all of the metrics associated with it. Body temperature, movement, heart rate variability, respiratory rate. So much data comes out of this little piece of equipment. Head on over to OURAring.com. Join the NBA, the WNBA, the UFC, NASCAR, the Move. Everybody's partnered with OURA Ring. Today's show also brought to you by the Pros Closet. I love this idea. So these guys, like when you go buy a car from a legit dealership, you can buy a used car, certified pre-owned. You know that it's gone through some process that says it's a quality, you're buying a quality car. Well, they just took that model and they did it in bikes. And why wouldn't you? How many bikes are sitting around that have been ridden like 200 miles? They put each bike through a 141-point inspection process. Think about that. For our listeners, 10% off all 2020 and 2021 bikes, road bikes, mountain bikes, cross bikes, whatever you want. Head on over to theproscloset.com/themove for 10% off, but just use the buy code MOVE10. That's MOVE10. They got the largest and most diverse selection of ready-to-ship new and pre-owned bikes in the world. Over 700 bikes from 80 plus brands. I'm telling you, this is a hell of an idea. Also, all carbon bikes come with a 12-month carbon frame warranty and an 18-month buyback guarantee. Love that. theproscloset.com/themove, 10% off for our listeners with the buy code MOVE10. So today we're talking about, you know, we're living in weird times. So they're having to hold iconic bike races at the same time. Today we saw the Tour of Flanders, which didn't disappoint, and an uphill finish in the Tour of Italy, which also didn't disappoint. So I guess we'll just break this down and let's start with the Tour of Flanders. Johan, your backyard. Again,
I'm wearing the Flanders lion today.
You've got the Lion of Flanders on your head. Another surreal or set of surreal images watching these iconic climbs with no spectators. A very exciting finish with no spectators. But you know, look, and a bunch of headlines out of this race, right? The huge crash of Julian Alaphilippe. His first time to do the Tour of Flanders. His last was scheduled to be his last race of the season. What a crappy way to end his season. But Matteo van der Poel proves he's a big champion, and Wout van Aert. I mean, I think we all knew that they'd be there head to head.
Yeah. Well, I think first off, you know, as you said, you know, the Tour of Flanders, no spectators. As most of us know, you know, in Belgium, Holland, that part of the world, the COVID situation is getting worse again. So really hats off to the organization of Wout van Aert, who, you know, they pulled out, you know, something that was basically impossible. Almost all the sporting events over there are canceled. And you know, to put up a huge event like this with a lot of factors that are uncontrollable, as, you know, you can't say, okay, people, you have to stay in your house. They did an amazing campaign in the week before. So I think, you know, it was very important that this race happened. And at the end, you know, we could have a very beautiful race. And you know, also hats off to the Belgian fans to you know, stay at home, watch it from their TV, which is basically where you see most of the race, you know. But yeah, I mean, what a race! There was before the Tour of Flanders, we were all speaking about three big names: Wout van Aert, logically, Mathieu van der Poel, and also Julian Alaphilippe, the new world champion, in his first participation. And honestly, I thought, Alaphilippe, I don't know, he's in great shape, but the Tour of Flanders is the Tour of Flanders. What kind of race it is, and I have to say, man, I mean, to have no experience. I mean, he did, of course, have the advantage to be on a team which knows this race in and out, so they could bring him at the right moment, but you still have to have the legs. And what a shame for him and for the race that, we had, at some point, we had the three big names up front, and it was clear that it was going to be amongst the three of them. And because of this incident, he couldn't sprint for it. But anyway, I thought, I was amazing to see the showdown amongst those three guys.
Well, we should describe what happened to Alaphilippe, because surprisingly, a lot of people listen to this show and haven't seen the race. But he hit a moto. The Van Aert and Van der Poel just moved out of the way at the last second, and he rubbed wheels with a moto and went down.
Yeah, I don't know.
What, 25K to go ish?
That would be a generous way of describing. He ran right into the back of it. I mean, this is, and I'm glad you brought this up, JB, because I was just gonna chime in. I mean, this is just yet another example of. I mean, here you have, I don't know, one of the top three biggest one-day races in the world, and you have the three best riders in the sport, certainly for this type of racing, and there's motos, and it's just, what are we doing, right? I mean, how is for that incident to have happened to one of the big three, right? Which it was exciting enough having the two come to the line, but the three of them coming to the line, which surely would have been the case. What a shame. And actually, I'm just seeing here the news popping up. So he broke two bones in his hand. He's having surgery tomorrow immediately. So he hit that. I mean, they showed it over and over and over, but he hit it hard. And then of course, just basically went flying over the handlebars and total yard sale in the middle of the road. But I don't know, that stuff shouldn't happen. Right.
Well, I mean, it's difficult, I mean, cycling is one of the most difficult sports to control. It's not in a stadium, it's on a road. You have to, 250 kilometers, you have to go to a lot of different places, and it's different. I mean, these motorbikes have to be there because, they're already, I think it's a great advantage that there's a motorbike with mechanical assistance, because we all know that in a race like this, the cars with the spare bikes and the spare wheels and the mechanic are not always there to. So in the final of that race, there was a motorbike with a mechanic on the back, and then just behind there was another motorbike with a commissaire, an UCI commissaire on the back. I honestly think these motorbikes have to be there. So the commissaire motorbike had to stop because the other one stopped just in front of him, and I think it's just a bad, really bad luck, because they had the whole part of the road. They were on the right side of the road. Right. Let's not forget, it is on the public road. Although it's closed roads, it's on the public road. And they always say, you have to follow the code of the road, even if it's a closed circuit. So the motorbikes were on the right side. The cyclists had to go around them. I think it's a combination of, it's everybody's nervous in this race. The riders, the assistants, the commissaires. It's deep in the final. Yeah.
Guys, this is George. I apologize for my sound. I'm in the middle of nowhere on top of this mountain, but I couldn't miss being with my team here for the Tour of Flanders. But Johan, like you said, these races are so hard controlled, but one of the most unique parts about this race is the last 100 kilometers, the last 60 miles of the race is within a section of about 20 miles. They are going back and forth, twisting and turning. And there's such a tight little area of that area of Flanders that they stay within, that you can imagine all the roads they're crossing, all of the control they need, the extra control that they would typically not have to have in a race that's point to point. This race is going back and forth both ways. So that said, makes it a lot more complicated and complex for these commissar motorbikes, the TD motorbikes, just to stay out of the way. So I kind of understand how that could happen. Unfortunately, it did happen to one of the top guys, one of the favorites of the race, and it really put a mark on the race in a negative way. But still, it was an incredible race to watch, and just these young guys being at the front. I honestly had picked Wout van Aert for the end just because he had just finished the Tour de France. He took a little bit of a break out of the Tour de France. It's impossible to mimic that sort of training at home. So he had what I thought would be more depth for the sprint, but unbelievable the way Van der Poel started from the front, had the confidence. I didn't know that he had the better edge, so to speak, on him in sprints and the cyclocross races. So perhaps that gave him that little extra bit of confidence for this. So it's super impressive to watch. And even though he won, it's so hard to say who was better. Those guys were so equally matched throughout this race that it was just incredible to watch.
I mean, George, when I saw that he had ended up on the front and Wout van Aert was, had the wheel, I gave him, I don't know, less than a 10% chance. I just think the guy is so fast. You have the advantage of being on the wheel. I mean, for Van der Poel to lead out the sprint, and as Johan pointed out in our preseason or pre-show notes, shift a couple times and reaccelerate. I mean, clearly the best rider in the race. It's very, very difficult to do that. Give a fast guy like Van Aert your wheel and then still win from the front. Man, that's a baller move.
Van der Poel is not slow either. He's also won bunch sprints. And, I think a two-man sprint after such a long race, it's very different, and I saw the post-race interview of Van der Poel, and he said, he just wanted to wait. I don't think he didn't lead out Van Aert. He just waited, and then he started his acceleration. So he already, let's see, he had already had one bike length when they started. Okay. Mm-hmm. So he waited. It was less than 200 meters when he went. And, as we said, almost all the sprints in cyclocross, these two guys are, you cannot be a more rival than these two guys. They've met each other through all the different categories at the highest level. So in the cyclocross, in the World Championships, in a lot of other different races, they've sprinted against each other, two-man sprints. And almost all of the sprints, Van der Poel has won them against Van Aert. Van Aert is obviously a great sprinter in bunch sprints, but that's completely different. It's with the lead out. It's already very high speed. And, after 250 kilometers, it's just, it's whatever you have left in the legs. And, but, I think they were equal, very equal. They knew during their, 15, 20 kilometer escape together that the one wouldn't drop the other one and that they had to sprint for it. At
one point they had a minute and a half. And you saw it was, and I don't know if there was a conversation had or not, if they both just realized, okay, we have a minute and a half. We both know that we're going to end up sprinting each other. And they just rode tempo. I mean, it came down to 45 seconds, which of course, like we saw last year in Liège, this whole cat and mouse thing. I mean, in the end, they had 10 seconds. I think they were comfortable that they weren't going to get caught. But for those, for that gap to drop as much, it wasn't like they were riding that fast behind. They just, I think, just either had a conversation or both in their head said, dudes, we better save up because this is you and me, baby. And they just turned through, and that was, that's what you would do. But
Johan, looking back, I mean, I don't remember seeing, and I've been watching Tour of Flanders and have ridden many of Tour of Flanders, seeing somebody go up to Pottersburg, actually two of them go up to Pottersburg like it was nothing. We're talking about a climb that's 20 steep.
Yeah.
After 145 miles on the bike, and they just pedaled up that thing like it was nothing. I mean, they just rolled over that. We're talking Sagan attacking, Van Avermaet, the best of the best. They're all over the place. So Tom Bonin, they're all over the place on that bike. So these guys, they just barely moved their cruised up that it was one of the most impressive things I've ever seen in the Tour of Flanders.
Yeah, the speed was, I mean, I was, when I was watching on TV, and they were kind of next to each other, and I kept thinking, okay, now the hardest part is going to come. And before we knew it, they were on the top already. They made it look so smooth and so easy, Yeah, they were definitely, I mean, on another level. It was these two guys, maybe the three guys with Alaphilippe, although, I still would have to see if Alaphilippe would have been able to stay with them on the Patersberg, Patersberg is a very special one. And I think that, both Van Aert and Van der Poel would have been on the Patersberg, maybe a little bit stronger than Alaphilippe. We won't know. But yeah, I agree. Very impressive on the Patersberg.
at the Pottersburg in my dining room. The boys, JB and Dave, have seen it. This is one of my most intimidating climbs of any race that I've ever done. You take that right-hand turn at the bottom, and you could just see to the top. And it's like the hardest 300, 400 meters of your entire life. It's always at the end of the Tour of Flanders, where you just think you cannot pedal anymore, but you got to make it over this hill. And so I really have like an affiliation with this climb, and just watching these guys just make it look like it was nothing. I'm still in shock about how easy they rode up it.
Yeah, and also George, if you look, so they made it. They went over it very smooth, and they took that left-hand turn on the top, and straight away Van Aert he just took a relay. It's nobody. They were not even on the limit. They went next to each other, and they just said, okay, let's keep going. They're on another level, these guys.
And they're very even. And I was commenting earlier, yes, when it's full power, Van der Poel moves around on the bike a little more, but when they're just rolling along, if they swap jerseys and helmets and bikes, you might not know the difference. The size, the cadence, the position. They're just good looking men on the bike. They're just rolling along. Like it's you watch kids at home. If you want to figure out what you should look like pedaling down the road, just go watch that. It is, it's fluid.
But it was a hard call to see what if Alaphilippe would have been there for this sprint. What if the rivalry, and Johan, you probably know a lot more about this than we do, between Van der Poel and Wout van Aert, that could have had a big effect, even though these guys are arguably very equal in terms of the sprint. But perhaps the rivalry of these two guys, may have given Alaphilippe the edge there for the sprint.
Yeah, Alaphilippe is fast too, but personally, I think that both Van der Poel and Van Aert, quality-wise, I think their top speed is a little bit higher. But after a race like that, you never know. Alaphilippe won the sprint in Milan-San Remo last year, from all the top guys. So. Yeah, we will not know. Still, I think it's very impressive, the performance of Alaphilippe in his third participation. Chapeau for what he did.
Right, but not surprising that he would excel there. Johan, you pointed it out earlier. He was also a very successful cyclocross racer. If you you just know his mentality. You put numbers on his back, he's going to race the bike. Then you throw in, obviously his talent. Then his cyclocross experience. He should be good at the Tour.
His explosiveness, explosiveness, and then
and his ability to position. We all know that in this race, if you can't be in the right position, if you don't have the guts to fight for position, then it's done. Like you never make it. And so he, nobody's pushing him out of the way when it comes to positioning. Couple that with the, arguably the best team, on these roads and the most knowledge. So he's always going to be in position, which means he saves energy, and then he's got the skill and the talent.
Yeah.
To be interesting, guys, for our listeners, Lance, you came to the Tour of Flanders once to help me out. Like, what did you think about it? Coming from your level, Tour de France wins. Like, explain how much different the Tour of Flanders is. This is one of the most arguably dynamic races in the whole calendar of pro racing. In terms, you got to be climbed, you got to have power on the climbs, you got to be really good technically. So what did you think when you did it the first time? You probably don't even remember, but Johan probably remembers. But
no, you're right. I don't remember, but I don't remember very much. So, but to me, it's why the Tour of Flanders is the most beautiful classic, right? Of the monuments, to me. If you said, all right, LA, you can pick one of these things and that you could have won, it absolutely would have been Tour of Flanders. It has the hills of Liège. It has the cobbles of Roubaix. It combines them in this, this cycling mecca part of the world, Flanders. And it's, but nothing you can wish all you want, but nothing can prepare you for that. And I would come to Flanders and try to help, but it's funny because at the Tour, like when I was trying to get position at the Tour, after a couple of years, people are just like, get the fuck out of the way. Everybody just get out of my way. Everybody get out of the way. You get to Tour of Flanders, you could have won, I think that 1 year there, I'd won 6. You're like, hey, get out of the way. And they're like, what do you want? This is not the Tour. This is the Tour of Flanders. Like, what are you doing here? Like, I'm not getting out of your way. Like it's a different sport in a way. And so people people, all the respect and all that other stuff just goes out the window because it's every man for himself a lot of times there. And it's sketchy. I was having PTSD watching, when they come down the new Quaremont and they make those turns before the old Quaremont and just and we talk about it all the time, just all the traffic control stuff. You saw guys jumping up on the sidewalks and just missing these planters and these traffic islands. And you're just like, oh no. Yeah. It is in a weird way. It's a different sport.
Hey,
yeah, I agree. It is a different sport. That's exactly how you can put it. Yeah. Different. It's like you could, road racing and track racing, you could basically say the Cobble Classics, it's a different category, a different discipline.
Yeah. JB, what do you got?
I want you guys to talk a little bit more about this rivalry with Van Aert and Van der Poel because, they're young guys and it's built such hype of this rivalry. Mm-hmm. And you've been pretty vocal about how your rivalry with Ulrich was very motivating for you. You woke up thinking about what he was doing. And then also your rivalry with Pantani was maybe more of a media hype. I think a lot of this is a media hype between these two. Well, so give me the good, the bad, and the ugly when everyone starts building up a rivalry like this.
Well, it can only be good, right? And most sports, really, really benefit from having that. I think it motivates the athletes, whether the rivalry is 2 guys or 3 guys or whatever. But the hype in and around it is good. I mean, we saw the stories leading up to this Tour of Flanders after Gent-Wevelgem, when there was some speculation. There was not speculation. There was talk that. That they were racing against each other. So that, the question is like, what's real, what's not real? It still makes for a great story. I personally don't know, how bad the blood is or isn't. But for sure they inspire each other. Right. And that's again, to your point, JB, that was, my rivalry with Jan was, although not a lot of conversation was ever had, it was a friendly rivalry. I never disliked Jan. I never wanted to dislike Jan. It was just he was just uber motivating for me. So that's, again, we're not inside their head. So I don't know how real or real or not it is. But one thing is for sure is it's going to be around for a long time. I mean, these guys aren't going away. They're young, they're good. And we're going to be watching this heavyweight match for quite some time.
Yeah. This is, they're rivals since they're young. We saw the picture I shared there with everybody about the World Championships Junior, and they really look like, really young kids. But this is actually the first year that they're top rivals in top road racing. Last year Van der Poel was 4th in the Tour of Flanders, and Van Aert was, 11th or 12th. But a part of that, they had never really come head to head, and now with this strange season, it never happened until last week, until Gent-Wevelgem, but today I knew today was going to be a different race. Gent-Wevelgem was a lot more tactical, and it's kind of normal that, if you want to win, if Van der Poel wanted to win, of course he couldn't let a break go with Van Aert in it. But the Tour of Flanders, by definition, brings the strongest riders to the front automatically. So there was no tactics involved. There was the legs today, no tactics. And once they were together, but I think they're big rivals. I do think they respect each other a lot. They both know the power and the value of each other. I wouldn't say they it's not that they hate each other. I also don't think they're going to go on holiday together. But they and of course, listen, in Belgium, for example, let's not forget Van der Poel is Dutch, but he lives in Belgium. Lives and breathes the Belgian atmosphere of cyclocross classics. And the media has jumped on this and tries to make this rivalry bigger than it is, which is ultimately good for the sport, I think.
No doubt. Shout out to Alexander Kristoff. I mean, we see him spending a bunch of time talking about first and second, and of course, Alaphilippe that probably would have rounded out that podium or some variation of that. But Christoph's had a hell of a season. It's no bad day when you're on the podium at Tour of Flanders.
Well, ex-winner of Flanders, and as they said on TV, it's the third in this race was going to be a lot more happy with their place than the second. The one who finished second, of course, the huge disappointment. One of each, either Van der Poel or Van Aert. One of them was going to be super disappointed, but the third one was going to be very happy. And I think for Christoph, that was the best possible outcome. The best possible result.
You got to think UAE, which Lance and I just came back from. They got to be over the moon with their team this year, winning the first stage of the Tour de France, getting the yellow jersey, winning the Tour de France, and now capping at the end of the season with their third place in Flanders. I mean, what an awesome year for them, and congrats to Alan Piper and the whole team there. That's an incredible year for them.
Yeah, we saw Alan in the car. These are his roads as well. So he spent his entire career living in this region of Belgium, and so he knows. I mean, Alan knows those roads as well. So so much comes from. I mean, especially if you don't have a ton of experience racing it now with race radio, boy, you have a guy like a sensei there that's just telling you, okay, this is exactly when you have to move up, and this is exactly what you have to look for. That is a big difference. So,
so well that they'll tell you there's, before the Quaremont, there's roads construction on the left. If you're stuck in trouble, you can jump on the sidewalk, 30 meters before the corner and move up 50 spots. That's how well they know the roads, and information like that is priceless. As you know, when you're in the heat of the action, and losing or gaining 20 to 30 positions can be your race. I mean, if you positions behind, before the Mur de Grammont or one of these, or the Koppenberg, you may never see the front again. So there's so much on the line in terms of positioning that, like you said, Lance, having guys like Alan Piper, who lives at the bottom of the Mur de Grammont, knows the roads like the back of his hands, is priceless.
Yeah.
We had that with Johan and Dirk. I mean, you guys always knew the important sections. You guys all grew up riding there. So it's a real advantage to have a hometown director for these races.
Yeah, it is. But you know what? Obviously, nowadays these teams and these riders, they do these recons, and one thing is knowing what it is. But, I think personally, that's why I give so much value to the performance of Alaphilippe. Even if he knew the roads, even if he had the team with him, you kind of have to have ridden these roads, because, it's not just knowing. You have to know exactly what it is riding here, riding there, knowing when you can move up. And yeah, I mean, I'm still, obviously not surprised by the physical performance of Alaphilippe, but to do this in his first participation, that's really amazing, really amazing.
Kid likes to race bikes.
Yeah, one thing we forgot to mention about Mathieu van der Poel. Last year, Mathieu van der Poel won his first big race, but first monument Amstel Gold Race. A number of years, I think like 30 years or 35 years after his father, Adrie van der Poel, won the Amstel Gold Race. Today, Mathieu van der Poel wins the Tour of Flanders, 34 years after his dad, Adrie, won the Tour of Flanders in 1986. That's quite amazing, He started by being, the son of Adrie van der Poel when he started racing, and now Adrie has become the father of Mathieu.
And the grandson of Raymond Poulador.
Yeah, well, yeah. Speaking of good DNA, it doesn't get any better than that, I think.
I remember when we first started talking about Van der Poel, Matteo, that Johan, you were telling us how his father was always trying to tell him to hold back, put the reins on him, be patient. Do you think he's saying anything to him anymore?
Well, I don't think it matters, because now Mathieu van der Poel has gotten to that level where he can say to his dad, "Hey, I'm better than you," which is true, And actually, I know from inside his team that Mathieu van der Poel doesn't really care about instructions or race tactics. He just races as he feels, and that's you never know. It could be 60, 70K to go in a big race, and we should not be surprised to see Mathieu van der Poel on the go,
But he's also, and I raced with Audrey for several years at the beginning of my career. I mean, Matthew's a very different rider. I mean,
Yeah.
Audrey van der Poel was a very good bike racer, but he had to find those opportunities. I mean, the raw power that you see from his son, he didn't have.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he was great.
No.
I mean, but he was sneaky. He was tactical. He was strategic. He would find the right move, find the right wheel, and he would win. He didn't do what his son does. So
never.
Let's not be mistaken. When you got raw horsepower like that, you pretty much do whatever the fuck you want sometimes. And so
that's what I say. Mathieu can say, hey, you can say what you want, but I'm better than you. I mean, yeah. Adri was a calculated rider. He won great races, but he had to really calculate it.
Yep, that's right.
They definitely rode with respect to the difficultness of the Tour of Flanders and the distance. I mean, you didn't see Matteo try to roll away with 80K to go. I mean, he actually had the distance in mind, and so did Wout van Aert, and they went, when the guys were supposed to go. When it's go time on one of the hardest climbs of the race, they didn't try to pull those where they would just ride away from everybody with 70, 80K to go. So it was interesting that they did have some patience, and they were the guys with the most matches left at the end.
We transition and talk about stage 15 of the Giro. And the only reason I'm in a hurry to do this is I know George, he's on set, right? And he's probably got to go do his hair and makeup and get all buffed out for the shoot, right?
That's kind of true, but yeah. So I'm going to jump off here while you guys handle the Giro. Thanks for letting me join in for Flanders, guys. What an awesome race, and what an awesome last part of the year to talk about bike racing with you guys.
Thanks, brother. Go look pretty.
All right, guys.
Make that paper.
Ciao.
Hey, make that paper.
Make that paper. Ciao.
Go make the paper. All right, before we jump into stage 15 of the Giro, which is also in a bunch of fun stuff to talk about there. The rest of the show brought to you by PowerDot. We talk about PowerDot all the time. We're super proud to be investors in this company over at Next Ventures. This company and the tech that they have is a game changer. When I think of recovery, injury recovery, or just simple, fatigue recovery, I haven't seen anything come along like the PowerDot, right? In the old days, it was some big clunky unit, and now it's the size of, a small fat wallet that you put in your backpack. Also integrates with Strava Health, Apple Health, Pros, and all the big leagues are using it. 30-day money-back guarantee. So, and when I'm talking about PowerDot, I'm talking about mobile e-stim, so electric stem, TENS, all of these things that have been proven to be so beneficial for recovery. 20% off for our listeners. Head on over to powerdot.com/themove. The buy code there is THEMOVE. 20% off. Last one before we jump into the Giro, another company we talk about a lot, LMNT, Element Labs. This is my go-to hydration product. I know I make fun of myself and others make fun of me. For as much as I sweat, I'm always sweating when I'm out on the bike, and I'm back in Austin and it's hot and humid and I'm sweating my ass off. It's just drive me crazy, but don't worry. I got the LMNT. It's my go-to hydration. No crap in it either. Also a money-back guarantee, 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, 60 milligrams of magnesium, total replacement. No sugar, no coloring, no artificial funky stuff in there. And no questions asked. Refund policy. If you don't like it, they say just give it to a salty friend. Head on over to drinklmnt.com/themove and get your hydrate on. Everything will be better if you're hydrated. I promise. So a couple of things stick out, right, about stage 15. First of all, congrats to another person that we really struggle with how to pronounce their name, Tao Geoghegan Hart. We'll just call him TGH. How about that? TGH. Really an alumni of Axel Merckx's development team Action. A team that I guess I was in some way somewhat involved with many years ago, starting up. It's been a good Giro for this development team. If you look at the alumni, right, I think they now have put 40 riders into the Pro Tour.
Wow.
Would you tell me, Johan, in this Giro, they've won 4 or 5 stages?
4 stages. So Theo is one of them. Guerreiro, the Portuguese guy. Another one, Alex Dowsett. Who's the 4th guy? That was another guy.
And they've had the pink. They've had the pink jersey.
And Joe Almeida also. I mean, another guy, first year professional, unbelievable.
22 years old.
Comes from the same program. Is defending his jersey. You know, today he lost a bit, but you know, it's already amazing to see how he hangs on. So. But today's stage win of Theo was quite impressive. What a comeback from Team Ineos, right? Fifth stage win for them in this Giro after 15 stages, and what a way to react, after losing their big leader Geraint Thomas, who was arguably the biggest favorite to win this race. It's they're finishing on a high note, which I think is important for that team. After. If you can say, anything but winning the Tour de France for that team is not a success. So I think it's important that they finish the season on a high note.
Well, speaking of teams that are either coming back or making a statement, this team Sunweb, we started talking about them in the Tour, and I think it was easy to dismiss them last year or whenever it was that Dumoulin left the team and just write them off, right? But this team, they clearly made some smart moves. Must have incredible morale. They're now sitting second and third on the GC in the catbird seat, especially after today. Mm-hmm. This team is a force to be reckoned with. I mean, they're.
Oh yeah,
they looked amazing. They made the race today, right? They set that tempo. They dropped the pink jersey, and
I think this team is one of the examples of a team once they get into the winning mode. Like already in the Tour de France, we were all. They didn't go with their big riders, and they won. I think they won 3 or 4 stages also in the Tour, right? But now they go there, and Kelderman was a promise a few years ago. Finished 4th once, I think, in the Giro, but then got some injuries, and now all of a sudden he's back, and the team. I mean, the team was incredible on this last climb. Which is a very hard climb now. 98, I think. Pantani did an incredible ride there. It was very steep at the beginning. The first 10 kilometers were very steep, and to see 4 riders of Sunweb basically setting the tempo, and at the end having Jay Hindley, he's Australian, right? Australian or New Zealand? Australian.
Yep. Australian.
This is a rider that if you say Jay Hindley, most of the people would say who. Very relatively unknown rider, but he's amazingly strong.
Including me.
He's amazingly strong, and it looks good for them. It looks good for them. Kelderman looks strong,
and by the way, when they're just setting tempo, they're out the back is going big engines, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jacob Fuglsang, Vincenzo Nibali. I mean, it's not as if the Pannenkoeken are going out the back.
Yeah,
they were going hard.
The two big names remaining in the race, right? Nibali and Fuglsang, which before they said, okay, it's Nibali and Fuglsang and Geraint Thomas, right? I mean, I always had my reservations for Fuglsang because he's never shown anything in a big stage race. He's definitely a great rider. Won a lot of nice races, did some good performances, but I checked his results, and he's now 34, 35, and he only had 1 top 10 result in a Grand Tour in his whole career. He was 7th in the Tour de France. So by definition, you should not put him as a favorite. Pozzo Vivo would be a bigger favorite than Fuglsang, in my opinion, based on their palmarès. Yeah. But anyway, he had some things in his against him. Also, he lost a minute 20 the other day on a mechanical. So now he's definitely out of the race for the overall. But yeah, it's the old generation versus the new generation. It's Nibali and Fuglsang against Hindley and Almeida and Theo Hagenhardt and. We have to talk about Brandon McNulty. I mean, this is a kid, young American, who as a junior won the World Time Trial Championships. As an under 23, won the same event. Did a fantastic time trial yesterday. Moved up into 4th. Lost a bit of time today, but this is for you American fans who are at home going, we're starting to see some guys come along. Whether it's Sepp Kuss, Brandon McNulty,
I've talked a lot about Matthew Riccatello on this show. Like we're starting to build this bench of 18 to 22-year-olds that could be our future. And so if you're paying attention and you care, put this name on the wall. We're starting to show some promise, folks.
Yeah, no, he was definitely already, last year, I think, was it last year he was on rally cycling team, no?
Yeah. He
already did some great performances. Another young rider of UAE, this is not a coincidence anymore. UAE is pushing hard, and riders from all over the world are performing well. And also this has now become a team where actually talents want to go to, that it's not a casualty, that they have all these guys performing that well. They're doing a great job.
I can't help but wonder, I love your thoughts on this, guys, but is there a correlation between all these young riders? That's been the conversation all year long. All these young riders coming up, and the teams we're getting more of a level playing field. We're seeing, as opposed to seeing just the dominance of Ineos, for example, and these veteran guys, it's the whole playing field seems to be leveled because they're letting these young guys be leaders and win and succeed. Is there a correlation between the two? Because we saw the success of UAE, and we're seeing EF win. It's not just Ineos anymore. Mm-hmm. All this youth and this talent coming up, is that why we're seeing things spread a little bit?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, first of all, I think everything has a cycle in life, in sport also. Everything has a cycle. I think the cycle of Team Sky Ineos is finished. I mean, they're not finished, but their advantage over the other teams is finished. And actually, Dave Brailsford said it himself. He admitted in an interview. He said, we have been caught up by other teams and even surpassed without us paying attention. So you can only stay ahead of the pack for so long because it's about knowledge. It's about, testing science. At the end, they had very out of the box thinking when they started their team 10 years ago, 12 years ago. But it happens all the time. Then riders go from one team to the other team and they take certain habits with them. And at the end, so now we see it's Sunweb and in the Tour Jumbo-Visma, that those are basically the two dominating teams, and then you have UAE. Now I think teams are going to catch up with each other, and then all of a sudden there's one kind of personality within cycling is going to have new ideas, and they're going to go into that direction, and we're going to get another advantage until teams are catching up.
Yeah. Speaking of cycling and speaking of we spend a lot of time on the show just talking about the health of the sport from a financial perspective, and whether that's the sponsorship of events, the sponsorships, title sponsorships of teams. There were a lot of people that were worried about the longevity of this sport, the health of the sport amidst COVID. If we can't have the tour, if you can't have these big races, what happens to the big sponsors? Do they pull out? We're going to have to spend a second here talking about the open letter that Jonathan Vaughters wrote, who runs the EF team, criticizing the organization, criticizing the UCI, basically suggesting that they should just cancel the race, call off the race. This was met, I was actually surprised with the blowback on that. And primarily, and I've known Luca Scinto for a long time, was an old friend of Max Shandry, so would train with us quite a lot, who runs one of the small Italian teams. His response was, okay, great. You're a big team. You've done the tour. You've had success. You've won some stages. And now you want to go home? Like, we're a small team. All of our livelihoods exist because of this race and these 3 weeks. We ain't going home, and we cannot go home because otherwise, we're going to have to, we risk losing the whole program. It was a logical and well said response, but yeah, and also, I very rarely will ever defend Jonathan Vaughters, but the Giro is the Giro, right? It's not the Tour. So when we were all so amazed at how well the bubble worked at the Tour, the Giro, it just doesn't have that. It's not the same level of organization. It's a little more shoot from the hip, and we'll make this up as we go along. If we were hearing stories of teams or in the early stages being in hotels with, all together, and then other tourists, and then going through buffet lines. I mean, stuff like this, just, if we're trying to be in the bubble, so to speak, that cannot happen. But I think, obviously everybody's not going to pack up and go home.
Well, I mean, I think it's something that, everybody needs to work together on this. For example, if you take this situation of several teams sharing a hotel and normal tourists and sharing the buffet, I've read that too. But, then my first thought is, okay, if you're a professional team, you have the resources to not go to that buffet. If you're there and this is one of your objectives and you want to protect your riders, they have cooks. They can go by. I mean, it's only for 1 day or 2 days that they're in a certain situation. They have to be able to stay in their bubble. Nobody forces them to go to that buffet. So, but yeah, I agree. It's, listen, at the end of the day, it's something that we're all vulnerable for it. Let's not forget 2 teams pulled out of the Giro earlier on the first rest day. After one team had 4 staff members testing positive for COVID, and then the other team had Steven Kruijswijk, one of the other favorites, who actually we didn't talk about, who had to go home. And so, then I think the most important is that to stay don't panic, but stay careful. And I think this call of voters to cancel the Giro, that's a panic reaction. And I think there's nothing more contagious. I mean, COVID obviously is contagious, but the panic around COVID is more contagious than anything else. And so I think, the Giro is going to go to the end. I'm pretty sure of that. It's important for cycling, and tomorrow's the second rest day. So tomorrow we have another day of testing. So let's see what happens. In the meantime, I think the organization RCS, they reacted quite proactively after this initial those 2 teams pulling out. They've done more tests already now. They didn't wait for the rest day, and apparently the last test they all came back negative. So for the moment, it's looking okay. So let's cross our fingers that tomorrow we have more good news.
So Sensei, who's going to win? I mean, we have, as you said, you got a rest day tomorrow.
The Giro.
Yeah. Finishes with a time trial, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you riding off Nibali, for example?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So if you go to the 6 riders ahead of him, these are not names we're used to talking about as GC guys.
I think for the moment, the best chances are with Kelderman. He has a great team. He's the leader of the team. He's a good time trialist of all these other guys. So, he's obviously, Almeida. I mean, it would be amazing. But, I personally think he's going to crack a little bit. He's going to stay up there. He's not going to crack, catastrophically. He does have a good time trial also. But, I think personally that for the moment he's been riding a little bit above his level, which is normal when you're young and you have this jersey and, you're kind of on a high. I think Kelderman. Although today, after what I saw of this other guy, Jay Hindley, I wouldn't write him off. He looked amazing today.
We got some big mountain days, though. I worry.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, for Almeida, that's, we talk about it here, that momentum thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's going to need the rest day. But this is, as is typical with the Giro, they run it right up to the finish. And it's I'm looking at these profiles. You got Sestriere the day before the final time trial. There's a lot.
No, there's some really, really hard races, hard stages to come.
Yeah.
I think, I'm a bit doubtful about, I'm going to go for Kelderman, but I would have expected him to be a bit stronger today. He was obviously on the limit, while his teammate was pulling. I thought that he had another acceleration and he didn't finally, but he's obviously catching up, gaining time on all the rivals, and taking back time on João Almeida. I think it's great. We don't know who's going to win. That's the great thing about it.
Yep, 3 uphill finishes, final time trial. We're maybe jumping the gun. We got a lot. There's a lot left. But it's obviously, a guy like Nibali, for example, he has a lot of experience. But today, you can see they have experience because they get dropped and then they kind of stay within the limits. So they really know how to pace themselves. Mm-hmm. So for the moment, Nibali's in a situation. We're going to see a huge attack from him at some point, from far away. Which listen, the Giro is known for this. To turn around the whole situation that nobody expects. So then we have to see also. If there's now in this case, for example, I could potentially see some kind of Italian alliance to kind of turn around. There's no Italians in the front. It's Almeida, it's a Dutch guy, it's an Australian guy, then there's no Italians. And so, it's their race, they're proud people, and they could potentially do something together to basically turn off the whole race. Until now we've seen a controlled race and basically the best guys fighting it out at the very end. So stay tuned for that.
In the next stage, is that going to change? There's going to anybody has to attack, and he will.
Good, yeah, and he's a kamikaze on the downhill, so who knows? But
and we're going to see also. The weather. We'll see if they can go up the Stelvio. For the moment, it looks like the road is free, but listen, they're going to wait until the last moment. We know the Italians; they're going to say, it's possible, and then they, the night before they're going to say, okay, we need to change. So that's also could be a factor. And let's not forget, we're in October. The high mountains in Europe, there's snow. So we don't know if all the stages that are on the plan will actually happen, or all the climbs.
Yeah. All right. When are we doing another podcast? What do we have? Paris-Roubaix has been canceled. Are we?
Paris-Roubaix, yeah.
We can wrap up Giro next weekend.
We'll wrap next week. Yeah. We have the Giro finishing, and on Tuesday the Tour of Spain starts. So the first 6 days of the Tour of Spain overlap the Giro. So we'll have a lot of to talk about.
Okay.
So next Sunday.
Yeah, Higgs just sent me a note. Next Sunday. Where am I next Sunday? What am I doing? Oh no, we got George's Fondo next weekend. So I got to work this out. Okay.
That means bad internet.
That means it's guaranteed to be like anyway.
So why is George always disturbing our plans?
It's George.
That's when you're a big shot, when you're a princess.
When you're big time. That's just the way it is. Yeah.
Okay. We'll work around his schedule.
All right, y'all. Then thanks everybody for tuning in. Fun day of watching some bike racing.
Okay. Thanks.
See you next Sunday.
See ya.
Ciao.
See you.